So let's generate our motivation and have a resolve to approach every situation in our life with clarity and also with kindness. And may that be just our default way of greeting everything in life. The kindness so that we are open to other people, and the clarity so that we can discern what to practice and what to abandon, what is true and what is not true. And so by doing this, to increase our compassion, increase our wisdom, progress on the path to accomplish our highest aims, attaining full enlightenment, and then using our skills and abilities as Buddhas to benefit the world, which is involved in so much ignorance, anger, and clinging attachment, and benefit all the beings in it who cannot see clearly what the causes of happiness and what the causes of suffering are. Okay, so in looking at the 4 points about our misconceptions of the self and how they relate to the objects, the 4 objects of mindfulness, and then by looking at the 4 distorted conceptions, the 4 misconceptions, also regarding those 4 objects and how generating the right understanding, helps us develop wisdom and compassion. Are you remembering what these 2 sets of 4 are? Then, to remember when we really see what these misconceptions are and how they're so entrenched in forming the second of the 4 truths, the source of our dukkha, then we see that by understanding them well and developing the correct understandings instead of the misconceptions, then it's possible to overpower these and eradicate them from the root, and in doing so attain liberation. So this is the goal of doing the 4 establishments of mindfulness. So it's good to really keep that in mind and keep these 2 sets of 4 misconceptions in mind, so that we can, as we really observe and meditate on the 4 objects, apply what we learn to those 2 sets of 4. Okay? So just to review, 1 set of 4 is on page 117. Okay, so to conceive our body to be the place where the self resides, conceiving our feelings to be what the self enjoys and experiences, conceiving our mind to be a real self, and conceiving phenomena, in particular our attitudes and emotions, as what makes the self afflicted or worthwhile. So that's 1 set. The other set is on 118. Okay, holding the unclean as clean, holding what is unsatisfactory or dukkha in nature as pleasurable, holding what is momentary as permanent, and holding what lacks a self as having a self. Okay. So, noticing these two sets in our daily experience, then we begin to understand how afflicted our mind is and how out of touch with reality our mind is. Yeah, we usually like to think that, we're pretty with it and we understand reality. But when we start looking at these, we realize, actually, we don't. The misconceptions, holding unclean as clean, the impermanent as permanent, and so on, those are correlated with specific objects, but they can apply to other objects. For example, holding the impermanent as permanent here is correlated with mindfulness of the mind, but actually we hold our body, which is impermanent, as permanent. We hold our feelings, which are impermanent, as permanent. Okay, so all these things don't just apply to the one that they're correlated with here. Okay, so now we're going to start on mindfulness of the body. So because this whole thing about mindfulness is really for meditation, we might spend a little bit more time with it, and then some other parts of the other sets that belong to the 37 aids to awakening, we might go through a little bit quicker. But I think this is very rich here. So 118, mindfulness of the body. To establish mindfulness of the body, we reflect on the cause, nature, and result of the body. So you see these three: cause, nature, result. Yeah, what really helps us to understand things. Through this, we see the body is unclean and unsatisfactory in nature, which decreases our attachment, anxiety, and obsession about the body. Okay, do you have any anxiety or obsession about your body? Any attachment to your body? Okay. So the causes of the body are the sperm and egg, as well as ignorance, craving, and karma. Now that's something to think about. What are the sperm and egg? And, they're not terribly attractive substances, are they? Yeah. And then ignorance, craving, and karma, they're not particularly desirable either. But the combination of all of those, produces this body, which, we jump into. Our mere self takes as its own. So the body's nature is unclean. This is evident when we examine the inside of the body. Okay, it's evident when you clean the toilets in the Abbey too. When it's just all the time evident, isn't it? Yeah, the body's dirty. If it weren't, we wouldn't have to wash it so much. Okay, the result of our body is a corpse. Now, you may never have thought like that before, but it's true, isn't it? This thing is the cause of a corpse. A corpse isn't going to come out of nowhere. Yeah, it's a continuation of this thing right here. Okay. While we are alive, our body is the basis for illness and injury, and a source of pain, worry, fear, and aggravation. Okay. We may have some happiness from our body, but that happiness is temporary. It doesn't last long. And also, we have to work very hard to get happiness from our body. Yeah, because if we did nothing, the body would get cold, it would get hungry, it would get thirsty, So if we did nothing, the body would just begin to suffer. So when we look at our whole life, everything we have to do to keep this body alive and to keep this body comfortable, we're completely obsessed with it. Yeah, because you get up in the morning and the body's hungry and the body's tired and you need to wash the body, and then you want to give it some coffee or tea, and then you have to go to the bathroom, and then you go off to work, so you have to select the kind of clothes to wear to work. Yeah, if you don't wear the right clothes to work, you won't look like you belong in that job. And anyway, when you're there wearing the right clothes, then hopefully you'll attract some other people, and then those people will give your body some pleasure. And so you're always looking at people in terms of who's attractive, who's not attractive, who can I flirt with, who can't I flirt with, and going around looking at people as objects of sexual pleasure, which has been in the media quite a bit. I think this is one good thing that's come from this election cycle, is some discussion about sexual exploitation. Yeah, it's been brought up a lot. But we see, how the mind just is infatuated with the body. Then, the body gets hungry again, we have to feed it again, then it gets tired. Yeah, we have to keep it in good health, so you go jogging, but jogging makes your knees sore. Yeah, and it makes you tired, and you're panting, and you're sweaty, so you have to come home and wash your body again. And then you have to put on some kind of scent because your body stinks. And, you can't stink if you're going to, find somebody who's going to make you feel good. So then you have to decorate your body some more. And at the end of the day, your body's just exhausted, and it falls into bed and goes, bleh. Yeah. And this is what we cherish the most. Yeah, it says something about us, doesn't it? Yeah. We can't endure the slightest bit of discomfort for this body. Not the slightest. If it is 1 degree too cold, we have to turn the heat up. If it is 1 degree too hot, we have to turn the heat down. Okay? We can only hear nice things. Yeah. If people walk on the floor and the floor makes noise because of their footsteps, we can't tolerate it. We tell them, fly, don't walk. You're waking me up, at the time I need to get up anyway, by walking down the hallway. How dare you? That is depriving my sacred body from 5 minutes more sleep. And I don't like that, and I demand that you change the floor. Or get a soundless skateboard, until you learn how to fly. Yeah. And then it's breakfast time, and I don't like what's for breakfast. You make this hot cereal every day. I don't like it. I want something else. Why can't we have pancakes? Yeah. Why can't we have this? Why can't we have that? I sent around to the people in the Abbey, there was something about the Garchen La. How do you say it? Garung La? No, Garung. Larungar. Oh, that's okay. Larungar. It's one of the biggest monasteries in China. 5,000, mostly nuns, some monks. Yeah. It's at 13,000 feet, so a little short of air. I'm sure if we went there, we would demand to have, oxygen masks. Yeah, because we don't want to be short of air. And, it's just dirt floor. The houses are made of wood. Wood. Yeah, not insulation. No insulation. Okay, wood. Yeah. And yet these monastics live there, they train there. There's no nice roads to walk on. You're walking just down the dirt. It's like India. Yeah. And all the houses are squished together. Yeah. You can smell pee-pee and caca everywhere. Yeah. And we would go there and we'd say, no, I do not like these scents. Yeah. I want to smell nice things. Get some toilets, and then you'll deserve to have me come. Yeah. And I don't like this dirt. Yeah. I want to walk on a nice, clean place. Yeah. And, and we would complain, wouldn't we? Yeah. I've lived in India with Westerners and I've seen it. I might have done a little bit of it, but not too much. Yeah. Because we can't tolerate anything that makes our body the slightest bit uncomfortable. Yeah? We don't care how much we complain, how many people we inconvenience. We are going to demand our rights to have the environment and the building be what we want it to be. Okay. Does this cause a little bit of suffering, do you think? Yeah? Suffering in your minds, suffering with your relationships. Causes some suffering, doesn't it? But that doesn't matter. These other people are wrong. Yeah? I want this. And I deserve this. Because my body has to be always comfortable. Yeah, the bed's too soft, the bed's too hard. Yeah, you know the story, don't you? Okay. While we are alive, the body is the basis for illness and injury and a source of pain, worry, fear, and aggravation. So we can see that easily. We have to work hard to earn the money to feed, clothe, shelter, and protect this body and make it attractive. This stimulates greed and anger and leads to war and extortion. Yeah? Why do we go to war? Over resources. What do we use the resources for? To protect and give pleasure to this body. In short, the body and the need to take care of it are the basis of so many troubles. Economic problems, environmental pollution, war, crime, overpopulation, and social injustice. Contemplating this, it becomes evident that the body is unsatisfactory in nature. You think? But then the body is unsatisfactory in nature? But if I don't have this body, who will I be? And then anxiety really comes up because we conceive of the self as inside the body. So if there's no body here for me to be inside, then, or no body to pretend is me or whatever, then who will I be? And how will people know who I am if I don't have a body? Because I like some prestige and reputation too. Yeah, and some praise. If I don't have a body, how are people going to recognize me? So there's lots of grasping at the body. Yeah. Then time comes to die, and it's like, I don't want to leave this body. Who am I going to be if I don't have this body? Anyway, the bed's too hard when I'm dying. I want a softer bed. Yeah. And on and on. Okay, so when we really look, the body is, so to speak, a pain in the neck. Yeah. Nevertheless, the body is the physical basis that supports our human intelligence, which, if used properly, enables us to practice the Dharma and attain awakening. So from this perspective, our body is considered valuable, and we treasure our precious human life. Therefore, while we see our body for what it is, as in the nature of unsatisfactoriness, we should not despise it. Okay? We keep it healthy, clean, and somewhat comfortable so that we can utilize it for Dharma practice. So that's the purpose of taking care of the body. When explaining mindfulness of the body, the Buddha detailed mindfulness of breathing, 4 physical postures, foulness of the body, the 4 elements, and 9 charnel ground contemplations. Mindfulness of the breath, in brief, involves observing the breath according to 16 steps. This is explained in the Anapanasati. No, that's influence, accenting the syllables on the wrong place. Anapanasati, okay, sutra. Okay, so there, the mindfulness of the breath is, there's 16 steps, and those 16 are broken into sets of 4, and so they apply to the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. So actually, mindfulness of the breath comes down to mindfulness of body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. And by contemplating these in terms of the 3 characteristics, wisdom understanding the body steadily increases. Most commentaries recommend attending to the breath at the nostrils and the upper lip. It seems that this point is more conducive for generating the nimitta. Remember yesterday we talked about the nimitta, or the sign, spoken of in serenity meditation. Some meditation teachers recommend observing the breath at any point in the body where it can be experienced distinctly, such as the abdomen or the chest. For some people, these points may be more conducive for cultivating insight. They usually say that focusing here is, the mind has to be more refined. It's subtler to feel the sensation of the air as it goes on the upper lip and in the nostrils, whereas the sensation of your belly extending and coming in is a much grosser sensation. Okay, so that's the mindfulness of the body, the breath. Then establishing mindfulness with the 4 postures. Okay, it's also part of mindfulness of the body. So walking, sitting, standing, and lying down. So that entails being mindful of what we are doing and why, no matter what position our body is in. Yeah, so that's quite a mindfulness practice. When we're standing, how are we standing? Yeah. When we're sitting down, how are we sitting? What's the posture in our body? What's going on with our body? You know, and here you can see how monastic etiquette helps train you in this kind of mindfulness, because monastic etiquette talks about, as a monastic, how you should stand, how you should sit, how you should lie down, how you should walk. Okay, and so it makes us mindful of that. So as monastics, you know, we may have a habit as lay people, when we want to get somewhere, we zoom. And it doesn't matter who's in the way, we just kind of go around them and we zoom. As a monastic, that doesn't look so great. Okay, so you learn to slow down a little bit, watch where you're going, watch who's in the way, you know, who's in front of you. Try and keep your mind where your body is instead of having your mind be at the place where you're going. Okay, when you sit down, no, there's a way to sit with our backs straight, our feet flat on the floor. We don't cross our legs at the knee. Yeah, when we stand upright. We don't stand with one hand here and one leg sticking out. Okay, so you become mindful of many ways, how you usually do things but don't pay attention. Okay? So this already is a mindfulness practice. Yeah, when we lie down, we don't just go and stretch our arms out and our legs out and things like that. Yeah, when you sleep, you try and sleep, on your right side with your hand like this. Okay, so checking, what our body is doing, why we're moving, how we're moving. Okay. So we are fully present in the moment, not thinking about the past or future. Being mindful during break time supports the mindfulness and meditation sessions. So, watching your body, being aware of it in the break times is, again, increasing your mindfulness. So when you sit down and meditate, the mindfulness is stronger. We also try and be mindful of our voice. What is our tone of voice? What is the volume of our voice? How are we speaking to other people? Yeah. How are we moving through space? Do we just let the doors slam behind us? Do we take the time to close them so they don't slam? Do we hold the door open for the person behind us? Okay, so all these kinds of things to make us more aware of our environment and how we're moving. Then establishing mindfulness on the parts of the body makes its foulness apparent. The Buddha mentioned 31 parts of the body to be mindful of. The brain was later added to make 32. These are broken into 6 groups. So the skin quintet: head, hair, body hair, nail, teeth, skin. Okay. The kidney quintet: muscles, tendons, bones, marrow, kidney. The lung quintet: heart, liver, connective tissue, spleen, lungs. The brain quintet: intestines, mesentery, stomach, feces, brain. Interesting, the group that the brain is in. The fat textet, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, fat, sweat, and fat. And the urine sextet: tears, grease, like on the bottom of your feet, spit, snot, oil of the joints, and pee-pee. Okay, so it is going to describe how you meditate on these. When you take ordination as a novice, your teacher instructs you on this meditation, how to do the meditation on the body. Yeah, because if you do this meditation and gain some sense of what the body is composed of, it helps you keep your precepts better. Yeah. Because one of the biggest difficulties for monastics in keeping precepts is sexual attachment. Yeah, when you are more aware of what the body is composed of, your own body and other people's body, then sexual attachment goes way down. This meditation works. I remember teaching it in Singapore to a group of college students, and one young man came back to me the next week. He said, "Venerable, I did that, and it worked, It's like, but I'm young. I'm not so sure I want it to work." Yeah. It's quite cute. Beginning with the skin quintet, okay, we focus on each part individually, observing its color, shape, texture, location in the body, and surrounding organs. Okay, so with the skin, first head hair. You contemplate your head, the hair on your head. I mean, we fuss with the hair on our head a lot, but what is it? And where is it? And what's its texture and color? And what's its purpose? Okay, quite interesting. Spend some time on head hair. Body hair. Okay, so the hair in other places of our body. You meditate on that. What's that? So if you had a pile of head hair here, you know, and a pile of body hair here, would you be attracted to either of them? Yeah. When I was in the process of deciding to ordain, as I had long hair down to here, so I cut it, and I put some of it as an altar, as an offering to the Buddha on the altar in the dorm room in Nepal where I was living. And one of my roommates came in and went, "Ooh, who put their hair here?" And I was like, wait, this is my precious hair. Yeah, but it's true, you know. I mean, usually, oh, somebody's hair is so beautiful and it's so soft and blah, blah. But if it's sitting right there, yeah, body hair, you know, the guys, you shave your beard and you put it right there, you know. Sorry. Yeah, so we look, okay, head hair, body hair, nails. So then you look at the nails, you know, and what the nails are and what they're composed of. And you imagine all your nails sitting out there. Are they so beautiful? Nails, teeth. Yeah, you think of your teeth. Yeah, so there's your jawbone and all the teeth in it. Kind of like, you know, when they have dinosaurs in the museum. Yeah, there's the bone and then your teeth hanging there. And, you know, your teeth are like pearls, so you line them all up here. Yeah. Are your teeth so beautiful? They're lined up there. Head hair, body hair, nail, teeth, skin. Okay, skin. Yeah. This is one of the things we're so attracted to people, you know, if they have nice skin, soft skin, smooth skin. Yeah. But here's the skin. Yeah. Imagine, you know, taking all your skin and just putting it there. That beautiful? Why is it beautiful when it's wrapped on the body, but it's not so beautiful when it's a pile there? Okay. So, after contemplating the skin, we go backwards through that group. Okay. So skin, teeth, nails, body hair, head hair. Yeah. Contemplating each part again until we reach head hair. Then we go forward once again, contemplating each member of the skin quintet and continuing on to the kidney quintet. So you again do head hair, body hair, nail, teeth, skin, and then you contemplate the muscles. You think of all your muscles and what they look like. Tendons. Yeah, what all your tendons look like and what they do. Bones. You strip all the muscles and tendons from the bones and you just think about the bones. Yeah. Marrow, the inside of the bones. Think about that. And then kidneys. Yeah. So you go through and each one of these you contemplate one by one and imagine it, you know, as it was saying here, its color, shape, texture, location in the body, and surrounding organs. So your kidneys, color. What color are your kidneys? Huh?
Red with kind of white on it.
Red and white, okay. Shape, we know, like kidney beans. Texture, soft and mushy. No? It's firm. They're firm? Okay. Yeah, but they're slimy.
Slimy.
Yeah. Well, they have different tissue around them, so they're, yeah. Okay. So color, shape, texture, location in the body, in your back, and surrounding organs. Okay. So you do that for, yeah, what's around? Just all sorts of muscles?
Intestines.
What, no, your intestines are up here, aren't they?
It goes to the back.
They go to the back that far? Okay. Yeah, so you know, really take a good look at your body, all those different organs, okay? And then you go back in the reverse order, back to the beginning, and then forward again, contemplating each one, and then you go on to the third quintet, which is the lungs. So heart, liver, connective tissue, spleen, and lungs. Okay, so like that, you cover all 32. Okay, so then we go forward once again, contemplating each member of the skin quintet and continuing on to the kidney quintet. The forward, backward, forward cycle is repeated for each group. In this way, we become familiar with each part of the body, seeing it clearly for what it is. Okay. Your eyes are like diamonds, your teeth are like pearls. So you imagine your eyes sitting out there, 2 eyeballs. Yeah? And the teeth out there. Yeah? Then maybe ears, but maybe you take the skin off the ears. What does the ear look like when you take the skin off? Which is what color? Kind of white? Off-white? Yeah. So you look at all of that. All that, you know, and it starts head hair, body hair, nail, teeth, skin. Those are the things that we see first in a person that, you know, usually attract us to that person. And then eyes aren't mentioned in here, are they? Yeah. But you sure think of them. You sure put them out there. You know, the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the esophagus. Yeah, you look at all of this. Okay, it soon becomes apparent that what we call my body is just a collection of unclean parts. Seeing this reduces our craving to take another samsaric body. Meditating on the body of another person in this way lessens sexual desire. Meditation on the parts of the body by focusing single-pointedly on their unclean nature is serenity meditation. Mindfulness of the body parts performed by investigating the various elements composing the body and by seeing the parts in terms of the 3 characteristics is insight meditation. Okay, so with these 4 objects of mindfulness, we can do serenity or insight meditation. Contemplation of the body also includes reflecting on the 4 great elements that compose it. So earth, water, fire, and air. A person of sharp faculties does this by scanning the body, focusing on the characteristics of each element, and taking all instances of it together as being that element. The expanded meditation is done by seeing which parts have a predominance of each element. For example, in bones, teeth, and internal organs, the property of solidity or the earth element is dominant. Another way of meditating in an expanded version is to scan the body and experience each element. So you sit there and you're really aware of what does the earth element feel like? Yeah, what does the water element feel like? You know, the fire element, the heat, the wind element. Each has a particular function. Earth is hardness, water is cohesion, it makes things stick together. Fire is heat, wind is motility or mobility. Through this, we understand that the body is an inseparable combination of the 4 elements. At this time, the mere collection of elements is apparent, and the perception of a person or self is lost. Because you're aware of just the four elements, and you see that nowhere is there a person in those four elements. It's very interesting, too, when you're doing this with your body, to think of, you get a feel for the earth element in your body, and then the earth element like in the table or the floor. And it's like the earth element in my body and this earth element, they're the same earth element. Yeah, the water element in my body that makes things cohese is the same as the water element in the lakes and rivers. Yeah, it's very interesting when you do this, that the feeling, the body kind of disintegrates in your mind. Yeah, because you see that what is composed of things that are outside of your environment too. Okay, then the charnel ground contemplation is done by comparing our present body to corpses in various stages of decomposition. So the body is the same nature as these corpses. It is not exempt from death and will become like those corpses under suitable conditions. So when we think of our body, do we normally think this thing is the cause of a corpse? That this thing's going to become a corpse? No, we think of this thing as alive and vital and beautiful and so on. But it's just the cause of a corpse. And it can be very helpful. In Thailand, they have outside the meditation hall, they often have a skeleton hanging so you can see what the body looks like, when it's dead. They will sometimes go to, in ancient times, they went to charnel grounds and watch the body decompose. I got some pictures of the bodies of people who died in the tsunami in, what year was that, 2004? Anyway, incredible meditation to look at what their bodies look like, bloated and decaying, and then thinking, this is what my body is going to become too. Okay. As with all okay, so this reduces our identification with and attachment to this body. As with all meditations, it is important to understand the purpose and do it with a balanced mind and without generating superstitious or fearful thoughts. Okay, so not looking at the nature of the body and going, ooh, I'm walking around with a corpse. This is scary, That's not the kind of thing you want to generate. That's not the purpose of the meditation. Okay? And also to not think, oh, my body is just so disgusting. I wish I were dead and I were free of it. Because that's not going to help you at all. We have to use this body to realize emptiness, to get out of samsara. In brief, mindfulness of the body investigates what this body is, seeing that it is not beautiful, permanent, something providing real happiness, or a self. Through consistent meditation on the body as having the three characteristics, concentration and wisdom arise. Okay. Then mindfulness of feelings. This one's really interesting. Through all four of them, I think, are quite interesting, actually. Through mindfulness of feelings, we understand how craving arises in response to various feelings, thus perpetuating samsara. So feelings arise through contact with objects of the five senses. We become attached to pleasant feelings, have aversion for unpleasant ones, and are apathetic towards neutral ones. We strongly grasp the I that experiences these feelings. Afflictions become more powerful, karma is created, and samsara continues. In this way, mindfulness of feelings makes us aware of the true origins of dukkha. So the example I was giving before about how fussy we are about our body, what we're actually, of course we're attached to the body, but what's really provoking that are the unpleasant feelings. Okay? The bed's too hard, it's too cold, it's too soft, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. Yeah? So there's unpleasant feelings, and that the unpleasant feelings produce some kind of craving. So when it's pleasant feelings, we crave for the feelings to continue. We crave for more of them. When it's unpleasant feelings, we crave for them to stop. Okay? When it's neutral feelings, we just ignore it. And, if the neutral feelings continue, as long as it's not pain, that's fine. Okay? Although sometimes we have neutral feelings when we want to experience pleasure, and then we get quite upset. Okay? So to really look, because we are so attached, we are so reactive to these feelings. Yeah? And actually, our attachment and aversion is more for the feelings. And it just happens to be that there's a certain external object that it provokes those feelings. But it's really the feeling that we're clinging to, not even so much the object. Okay? So when you eat chocolate cake, the pleasurable feeling that you have is what we're really attached to. And the chocolate cake looks like it has that feeling in it, or at least it provokes that feeling, so then we become attached to the external object too. And just to see how controlled we are by our feelings. Like I was saying before, the smallest unpleasant feeling, and we are unhappy. The smallest pleasurable feeling, we don't want it interrupted. We want more. Okay? And so just to look in our lives, what we do to get pleasurable feelings and what we do to avoid unpleasant ones. Yeah, it's really quite shocking when we look at how all of that works. To establish mindfulness of feelings, we contemplate our feelings, examining what we feel now, what we felt in the past, and what we expect to feel in the future. The three feelings are correlated with the three types of dukkha. Painful feelings with the dukkha of pain, pleasant feelings with the dukkha of change, and neutral feelings with the dukkha of pervasive conditioning. Okay? So we observe that the experience of pleasant feelings eventually changes into the experience of painful ones. Doesn't it? If you keep doing something that brings you pleasure at one moment and you keep doing it, that pleasure eventually becomes painful. Okay? Because it's not real true pleasure. It's what we call pleasure is actually pain when it's very small. Because neutral feelings are unstable and polluted by ignorance, they contain the seed for manifest suffering. The suffering of pain is always ready to flare up. In this way, we see all these feelings as unsatisfactory, and aspiration for liberation grows in us. Okay? Our feelings continuously change with pain, pleasure, and neutral feelings following in quick succession. Because feelings are transient, there is no sense in being attached to pleasant ones or upset by unpleasant ones. So when we just, let's say, focus on our body, and watch the different feelings, how they come and go very quickly, or focus on your mind and watch pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings in your mind arise and change very quickly according to what you happen to be thinking about at any particular moment. Okay? So all these feelings arise, they cease, they arise, they cease. Because they arise and cease so quickly, it doesn't make sense to be so attached to some of them and have so much aversion to other ones. But when we look at our, how we experience these feelings, we see, like I was saying, when there's pleasurable feeling, I want more. I don't want it to end. Yeah, unpleasant, it's gotta stop immediately. Neutral feeling, space out. Okay. Observing the causes of feelings. So that's the nature of feelings, okay? Observing the causes of feelings, we understand how the interdependence of object, cognitive faculties, so the sense power, and consciousness produce contact and thus feeling. Observing the results of feelings helps us to understand craving and clinging and how these perpetuate samsara. Okay? So, when we observe that these different feelings come due to the cognitive faculty and the consciousness and the external object, then we realize that if we don't want to constantly be befuddled by so many feelings, we should limit our contact with certain objects. Okay? So again, in monastic life, this is, part of our training is to limit contact with objects that bring up a lot of pleasant feeling, because we so easily get attached to that pleasant feeling and want more. And when we really investigate the problems coming about because we're craving and attached to that pleasant feeling, then it makes sense to keep some distance from those things. Not because those things or people are bad, but because our own mind is uncontrolled. Yeah? And an uncontrolled mind is like a mad elephant. Yeah. Responding to feelings with mindfulness instead of craving and clinging stops feelings from instigating afflictions. Okay? So being able to observe the different feelings with mindfulness, okay, instead of just instant reaction, observing the feelings with mindfulness puts some space between the perception of the object and the feeling experienced through that, and what usually comes immediately afterwards, which is our reaction to the contact with the object, craving the pleasure, craving to be free of the pain, and so on. Okay? So mindfulness, observing these feelings, puts some space there so that we don't have to always be so reactive, craving, pushing away, craving, pushing away. This constant struggle we have with things in the external world. And by doing that, then it stops the production of afflictions. Okay? Because our afflictions occur in response to the pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings. When a painful or pleasant feeling arises, we turn our mindfulness to observe it. Investigating its nature, we see it isn't one solid entity. It is a flowing process, a series of moments of pain or pleasure. Each moment differs slightly from the preceding and the following moments. Okay, so with mindfulness, you observe this. In the case of pain, what appeared to be an unchanging, unified, painful feeling is now seen as a mental construct projected on a series of moments that have a similar quality. Furthermore, we observe there are different kinds of pain: throbbing, prickling, stabbing, aching, and so on. When we make painful feelings the object of mindfulness, we no longer feel weighed down or tormented by them. Interestingly, many doctors have found that mindfulness meditation is a great aid for people suffering from chronic pain. And this is part of John Kabat-Zinn's work at the University of Mass Hospital, working with chronic pain and using mindfulness to help people. The Pali scriptures say pleasant, painful, and neutral feelings each have two subdivisions, worldly and spiritual. Worldly happiness, or worldly pleasant feelings, arise from acquiring desirable sense objects. Spiritual happiness arises from having positive mental factors such as concentration, faith, and love. So this was relating to the question that you were asking. Okay, so we can see here the difference between worldly happiness, that is depending on a specific external object, and spiritual happiness that comes through having virtuous mental factors. Worldly pain is triggered by contact with undesirable sense objects or from not acquiring what we want. Spiritual pain may arise when we aspire for states of concentration or for attainments that we have not yet actualized. So a feeling of wanting them so bad, but, not having them yet. It also may arise from regret regarding harmful actions we have done. Here, spiritual pain can motivate us to engage in virtuous actions to actualize our spiritual goals. So this is quite interesting, how spiritual pain, such as regret from doing things that have been non-virtuous, how that can motivate us to instead create virtue, which leads us to actualize our spiritual goals. Okay, so usually we don't like pain, we want to get rid of it at all costs, but some pain can actually motivate us on the path. It's also like when you do the mindfulness of the body, and you really look at what this body is, sometimes you have a feeling of like, ugh, this is ugh. And it's not a pleasant feeling because you see the body for what it is. But that feeling, when you see it with wisdom, you realize, oh, this is good because this will motivate me to train my mind in the antidotes to the afflictions, and especially to train my mind in wisdom so that I can overcome the causes of samsara and the causes of taking this body. Okay, so that spiritual pain, or even worldly pain, when it's seen with wisdom, can be transformed into a motivating factor on the path for us. Okay, this is what I was talking about this morning, in response to the election results. Yeah, we experience pain, but then we use that to make our determination to practice stronger. Okay. Worldly neutral feelings arise when we are oblivious to the results of our actions, leaving us apathetic, complacent, and lazy. Spiritual neutral feelings are, for example, the equanimity of the fourth jhana, which is actually said to be quite peaceful and relaxing. Worldly, pleasant, painful, and neutral feelings are the source of afflictions if they are not observed with mindfulness, while spiritual, pleasant, unpleasant, and equanimous feelings are beneficial and can lead us to further our practice of virtue. Okay? So they're, in response to your question, definitely useful. Yeah, the Buddha, never said we should suffer. Sometimes people think, Buddha said I shouldn't enjoy ice cream and I shouldn't enjoy this and I shouldn't enjoy that. Buddha didn't say that. There's nothing wrong with experiencing the pleasure. It's when we get attached to it, that's what causes the problem. When our mind is super uncontrolled and attachment arises, woof, in an instant, then it's better to take some space from the object because of our uncontrolled mind. Okay? But we take that space so that we can do the meditation and overcome our attachment. Okay? Mm-hmm. At a certain point, when establishing mindfulness of feelings, we stop focusing on feelings as being pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, and stop observing their arising and passing away. Instead, we become mindful simply that there is feeling, so as to cultivate bare knowledge and constant mindfulness. Here, feelings are experienced as impersonal phenomena. So you're just watching all the feelings. You're not describing pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. You're not saying arising and ceasing. But you're seeing them as impersonal phenomena. Yeah, that these feelings are not mine. They are not me. Okay? So it creates some space between the feeling and this usual, incredible reactivity we have towards them. They're just feelings. We do not identify with them and cease to grasp them as I, mine, or myself. Okay? Then we'll do mindfulness of the mind. Do you see how rich these are for meditation? Yeah. To meditate on the impermanent nature of the mind, we contemplate the mind of the past, which is now gone, the mind of the future, which has yet to come. Only the present mind remains, but this too is ever-changing and does not stay for a moment. Each moment of mind arises, abides, and disintegrates simultaneously. Okay, so if we have to, it's very interesting in your meditation. Try just to stay focused on the present mind. See if you can find the present mind, or see if you can find the present moment. Mindfulness of the mind's subtle impermanent nature brings two understandings. One is, although a moment of mind does not remain for a second moment, the continuity of mind is indestructible. So each moment in a continuity does not last, but each moment produces another moment, and that continuity continues on. It doesn't end. And there's nothing that can cause it to end. And the second understanding it brings is that the I is imputed in dependence on the mind. Yeah, so sometimes we impute the I in dependence on the collection of all the aggregates, but sometimes just on the mind. Yeah, I am my mind, or my mind goes from life to life, so that's who I really am. So understanding those two things about the mind, that it doesn't last for a second moment, and yet the continuity is indestructible, and that the I is imputed in dependence upon the mind, understanding those two reduces fear at the time of death of becoming totally non-existent. Okay? When you understand these two things, that reduces fear at the time of death. The fear of becoming totally, it should read the fear of becoming totally non-existent at the time of death. That would be a better rewording of the sentence. So at the time of death, what often happens is we feel like we're becoming non-existent. And that brings an incredible feeling of terror and fear. Yeah. And that triggers craving and clinging. And craving and clinging cause karma to ripen, which throws us into another rebirth. Relaxing that fear gives more opportunity to meditate and gain deep realizations at the time of death. So if we have an awareness that each moment of mind, is rising, abiding, and ceasing at the same time, not enduring. Yet the continuity of mind is indestructible. Okay? That can calm our fear of at death, because the fear of becoming non-existent, if we realize that the continuity of consciousness continues, then we don't have to fear it becoming non-existent. And so fear of the I, which is designated in dependence on that mind, then we don't have fear of that I becoming non-existent. And then the second one, if you see that the I is imputed in dependence on the mind, then that really helps you, because you realize that the I is not the mind. Okay? And it exists in relation to the mind. It's not inherently one with the mind. It's not inherently separate from the mind. It's just a mere designation. And seeing the I as a mere designation, designated in dependence on the mind, then that too eliminates the fear of the I going out of existence, because you've realized that the I is just a mere designation to start with. Okay? So meditation on mindfulness of the mind can help a great deal at the time of death. Establishing mindfulness on the mind also entails gaining a direct experience of this formless mind that is aware and knows objects. Like a mirror, it reflects things, but precisely identifying its clear and aware nature is difficult. In our daily lives, our five senses are very active, and the experiences of our mental consciousness usually concern what our five senses have contacted. Most of our lives are controlled by these external experiences and our reactions to them. We do not have the opportunity to experience the real nature of the mind. So we're always reacting to the objects of the five senses, and we very seldom have any space from that, from the mind, perceiving these things, conceptualizing them, being attracted to them, being repulsed by them, and so on. Okay, so we have very little time to actually see the nature of the mind. So to allow the actual conventional nature of our mind to arise, we must let go of thoughts about external events and internal experiences and thoughts of the past and future. Sounds easy? It's not. Okay, we're always in the past and future, seems like. Initially, we may feel the mind is nothing, void, thoughtless. But when we are able to prolong this time of not thinking of the past or future, we might get a glimpse of voidness. This voidness is not the emptiness of inherent existence of the mind. Rather, we have created a gap by intentionally stopping mental elaborations and manifestations of the coarse level of mind. Okay? An experience of stillness arises because the senses are not active. So what we've done here is, usually there's like one sense experience after the other, and then the mind thinking about these sense experiences and planning in relationship to them. When you stop thinking about the past and future, you have this experience of like voidness. It's not emptiness, but what we've done is we've stopped the mental elaborations, meaning all the conceptualization process that happens in reaction to the objects of the different consciousnesses. And we've also stopped the manifestations of the coarser level of mind. So the coarse level of mind that's always involved with these objects and conceptualizing and push and pull, we've been able to see through that a little bit. Okay? And that's when the experience of stillness arises, because the senses are not active, so you're at a subtler level of mind there. There is just the experience of the present, of a void. As we sustain this gap, we might get an experience of the mere clear and aware nature of mind. Only then have we found the object of meditation for practicing mindfulness of the mind. Okay, that's the subtle conventional nature we want to be aware of. Becoming familiar with this, we will experience the momentariness of the mind. Okay, so we start getting a sense of the impermanent nature of the mind. As we continue meditating, we become aware, 1, the natural state of our mind is free from both destructive and constructive emotions. Yeah, that already is, the basic, clear, and cognizant nature of our mind is empty. Yeah, is free from constructive and destructive emotions. What a relief. Okay? Unless we're very attached to our emotions, in which case it becomes scary. Okay? Emotions arise due to causes and conditions. They are adventitious and do not exist in the clear and aware nature of the mind. Seeing this neutral nature of the mind, we know that it is possible to put an end to the mental defilements. Okay? And then second, we realize the mind is momentary. Thus, thoughts are also transient. This, too, enables us to understand that putting an end to mental defilements and actualizing true cessations are possible. In this way, mindfulness of the mind leads to understanding true cessations, the third of the truths of the Aryas. Okay, so we begin to see, the natural state of the mind is free of constructive and destructive emotions. It's just clarity of awareness. And the mind is momentary, so all the thoughts and conceptions and all these things are transient, arising, ceasing, rising, ceasing, rising, ceasing. So seeing that impermanence, seeing that the basic conventional nature of the mind is free from emotions, that gives us some feeling that liberation can be attained. Yeah, because if the emotions were the nature of the mind, or if the mind were some fixed thing, then, it would be very difficult to get rid of these emotions. Okay? Mindfulness of the mind also leads to the realization of the selflessness of the person. We usually think of the person as related to or identified with the psychophysical aggregates. Sometimes we feel that the I exists on the body. Other times it seems the I exists on the mind. When we meditate with mindfulness on the body, we feel I am meditating on the body. The I appears to be inside the body, yet separate from it. When we meditate on mindfulness of feelings, we feel there is an I who experiences pain and pleasure. This I, too, seems to be separate from the feelings. It is the experiencer or owner of the feelings. Okay. Meditating on the mind, we initially believe that our mind could be us. Yeah. But later on, we discover a neutral, subtle mind that is the object to investigate with mindfulness. At that time, we may wonder, where is the I now? We may get the feeling that the I is merely designated independence on the collection of body and mind. There is no independent I that owns the body and the mind. In this way, the meditation on the mind leads to understanding the selflessness of persons and true cessation. Okay? So you see how that works? Sometimes we feel that the mind is who I am, but when we discover this neutral, subtle mind, yeah, it's just an impersonal, subtle, neutral mind. And where's the I in that? What is me in that? Okay. And then that leads us to see that the I is merely designated in dependence on the collection of body and mind. So there's no independent I that owns the body and mind, okay, or that controls the body and mind. So this helps us understand the selflessness of persons and helps us see the possibility of cessation. Mindfulness of the mind and its impermanent nature also leads to understanding the selflessness of phenomena. In other words, phenomena emptiness of inherent existence. Inherent existence is synonymous with independent existence. If something existed independently, it would not depend on anything else, including causes and conditions, and would thus be permanent and unchanging. However, since the mind arises and passes away in each moment, it is not permanent. Thus, it depends on causes and conditions, and it does not exist independent of all other factors. So this shows that the mind is empty of inherent existence. Okay. In the Pali tradition, mindfulness of mind refers to mindfulness of mental states. So here the way His Holiness explained it, it's really just looking at the bare nature of what consciousness is, the clarity and awareness that is the conventional nature. In the Pali tradition, mindfulness of the mind is a little bit different, and it refers to the mindfulness of the mental states. So states of mind colored by the mental factors accompanying the primary consciousness. So just as water mixed with orange syrup becomes an orange drink, the mind accompanied by anger becomes an angry mind. And a mind accompanied by concentration becomes a concentrated mind. So here it's helping us see, that the mind, the relationship between the mind and the different mental factors, okay, and these different mental states that arise in us. Mindfulness of the mind develops naturally from mindfulness of feelings, because due to the three types of feelings, the three poisonous mental states arise. Okay, so you have the three feelings, you get the three poisonous mental states. As you start to investigate what is that mind that is associated with these different mental factors, then you start getting into the nature of the mind. And you see how the different mental factors color the mind in the same way that the syrup colors the water. Yeah? So the anger is not the nature of the mind, but when anger comes up, we have an angry mind. Yeah, it takes over. We begin the meditation session by observing the breath to settle the mind, and then turn our mindfulness on the mind itself, observing whatever mental state is present without clinging or pushing it away. In doing so, we learn to discern virtuous and non-virtuous mental states. So that's very helpful when we can just observe, the different thoughts arising in our mind. Then we automatically begin to see, which ones are virtuous that we want to enhance, which ones are non-virtuous that we want to abandon. We also contemplate the arising of the mind, that various mental states arise due to their own unique conditions, and the vanishing of the mind, that these mental states do not last in the next moment and pass away as soon as they arise. When we then contemplate both their arising and passing away, the momentary nature of all mental processes. And so then we begin to see that there's nothing to grab onto. in all these different mental states, and also that there's no I or person in them. When familiarity with the characteristics of various mental states is established, and we are able to identify them quickly and easily, we can observe the mental process itself with mindfulness. Through this, we dwell without clinging. Okay. So, it's a few minutes for questions or comments. Yeah.
The beginning, this about the mindfulness of mind, says the natural state of our mind is free from both destructive and constructive emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So things like love and compassion, are they also advantageous to our natural state of mind?
Yeah. Yeah. Because if they were inherent in the mind, then they would always be present. But we don't always experience love. We don't always experience compassion.
So what is the relationship with love and compassion that can become part of the qualities of the Buddha?
Okay. The thing with the three poisonous attitudes, and the three poisonous attitudes here, love and compassion here, none of them are the nature of just the clear and knowing conventional mind. But ignorance, anger, and attachment can be eliminated because they're based on grasping at true existence, and grasping at true existence and true existence does not exist. Okay? Love and compassion are not based on grasping at true existence. So we can negate true existence, realize emptiness, and that doesn't destroy the love and compassion. The realization of emptiness cuts the ground out underneath the confusion, attachment, and anger, because those three minds are based on seeing things as inherently existent, whereas love and compassion are not based on that. Okay? Yeah.
The last step in establishing mindfulness of feelings, so are you no longer labeling these feelings as pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral?
Yeah, you're just aware of the feelings and seeing them as impersonal phenomena.
But not calling them any one of those three?
No, there's just feeling.
So how do you move to that step?
I guess it might be similar to at the beginning you might say red apples, green apples, yellow apples, but after a while you just see apples. Yeah, and you don't have to discern, make a big deal out of which kind they are. Must be something like that.
Quite a bit harder than just apples.
Yeah. Just apples. That's all. Uh-huh.
The meditation on the 32 parts.
Uh-huh.
Is it best, in general, is it best to do all 32 at once, or is it okay to just...
Oh, okay. So should you do all 32 parts of the body at once, like in one meditation session? I recommend going more slowly through them, so that you can really spend time getting acquainted with what they are. Yeah, if you don't go too quickly, then you're just describing them to yourself, but you're not really, sinking your mind into what they are.
So take one group and do the forward pass.
Yeah, or just take one of them, head hair. Contemplate head hair for a while, and really think about it. And then go to body hair. When you're done with head hair, then go to body hair. If you don't get through all 5 at once, it's okay. But when you do get through all 5, then go backwards and forwards again. Okay? Yeah.
So you said, the book says that the continuity of mind is indestructible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wonder, what happens when you're unconscious?
There's still a continuity of mind. If there were no continuity, then how could you become conscious afterwards again? Okay? Then if you were in a coma or something like that and there was no continuity, then what would the cause of the mind, the first moment of mind when you woke up from the coma be? And why would you eventually be able to remember what happened to you before the coma too? Okay, so there's a continuity there, but the mind's extremely subtle. Okay, there's different levels of consciousness, so it's quite subtle at that point. Although one friend of mine, she was in a coma, and she told me that she was aware of people around her, talking and being concerned about why she's in the coma and everything. I thought that was interesting. There must be different kinds of comas, some that are lighter where you may be aware of that, and then some where it's really pretty deep. Mm-hmm.
On page 123, where it talks about the conventional, you let the conventional nature of your mind arise, and you provide space, and so you eliminate thoughts of past and future and so on, and feel that your mind is nothing, and you might get a glimpse of the voidness, and so on, just as the experience of present of void. To try and start that kind of meditation practice, does shamatha meditation fit into it? And if so, then when do you switch to analytical?
Okay. Here you would start the meditation, refuge and bodhicitta and so on, like we usually start things. And then just sit and do some breathing. And then from the breathing, gradually just shift into, watching the mind itself. And when thoughts of past and present come up, you can it's interesting to watch and ask yourself, where do they come from, where are they, and where do they go? Yeah. And then that leads you into looking at what's behind those thoughts, instead of being so entangled with the content of the thoughts, kind of what are the thoughts themselves. Okay?
So you just use the shamatha to settle your mind.
Yeah,
And then you start watching.
and then if you get a glimpse of, just the conventional nature of the mind, then you can fix your mind on that, and that becomes your object of doing the shamatha meditation. Okay? Yeah? Yeah.
Well, they talk about cave yogis, and I don't know if this is going off, but they say there's no breath. Like I read a book called Fourth Uncle of the Mountain, and it was actually written about a Vietnamese fellow who came here, but he had experienced being with a cave yogi. His father took him.
With what kind of yogis?
Cave yogis.
Oh, okay.
Lived in a cave. I don't know if I'm going off, but they don't have any breathing. He said when he first saw him, his father brought him to him.
There's sometimes when people go into very deep states of meditation on the jhanas, then their breath stops.
And they can be suspended.
And
Suspended.
no, they're still alive. Yeah, but the gross breathing stops.
How long can they do that?
I don't know. I've never asked them. I've never met somebody that can do that I know. If they can do it, they haven't advertised to me. Okay. Did you have a question? No?
It might be a little bit off topic, but you talked about dying and that a lot of people experience fear and terror, which I can understand. And I'm just curious, how do you intend on handling that situation for yourself?
Well, I have lots of thoughts of how I would like to die, but when you die, you don't really have a choice. Yeah, and you can plan your death all you want, and when it happens, you got to go with what's happening.
Is there any way to make it easier?
Yeah, I think the more we practice the Dharma when we're alive, the less, the more we can lessen our attachment, lessen our anger, lessen our ignorance, then that really helps at death. Especially the attachment part, because at the time of death, the attachment can arise very, very strongly. And then that really makes the karma ripen and throws you into another rebirth. Or if you're angry at the time you die, you're angry that you're dying, or you're angry at somebody, then that also makes really bad karma ripen. So the more we practice while we're alive, then the easier it's going to be when we die. Yeah. And then the Buddha taught various ways to think and various ways to meditate when we die as well. So you practice those while you're alive. Yeah.
Do they use drugs like they do here in hospice? I mean, really, the American way of death is terrible. And I was there when my mother was passing, and she was in agitation. And it seemed like there was pain, but it was more emotional pain, not letting go. And they administered 2 drugs, and I didn't even want to do the second one. I wasn't there, and then they wanted to do a third one, but they just decide when the person's not letting go. And do they do that in Asia? Or?
Usually people can't afford those drugs, at least in India, in the Tibetan community. I don't think so many of them have it. Maybe sometimes when they go to the hospital, the Indian hospitals, they'll get that. If somebody's been practicing Dharma for a long time, then probably not. They wouldn't take those. I think Americans, our way of doing things is, because of the wealth, is in this country is very different than in countries where you can't afford all that kind of stuff. And similarly, in many of the impoverished countries, you wouldn't even get to live that long because you would have already died of the disease before, because they don't keep you on, health ventilators and all this kind of equipment because they don't have it, or you have to be extremely wealthy to afford it. Yeah?
I just wanted to ask about how do we tell the difference if we're meditating on the mindfulness of the mind, trying to observe feelings and virtuous states or non-virtuous states that are arising. How do we differentiate that from the blank mind meditation that you were referring to? I think it was earlier this morning.
Yeah. So when when you're differentiating virtuous and non-virtuous, there's some kind of analysis involved. So that wouldn't be blank-mindedness. But when you're just trying to get just this bare feeling of the mind, they say it's very difficult to actually discern it. And similarly, using emptiness of inherent existence as your object of serenity, it's difficult to discern it, and so both of those can easily go into some kind of blank-mindedness. Yeah, so they say you have to really pay attention to what your object of meditation is. Be able to ascertain it correctly.
Venerable, in these moments of arising, abiding, and declining of consciousness, does that moment contain every seed of every piece of knowledge, insight, karma? Is it a condensation of absolutely everything, every moment?
Yes, yeah. If you're saying that there's different assertions about what actually carries the karma, yeah, and so sometimes, they say it's just the mere I, the merely labeled person, but then sometimes they say it's the stream of consciousness. Okay, and so all those different seeds would somehow, be around there. But neither the seeds nor the consciousness are material. So don't have this idea of, here's the mind, and then you have all this popcorn around it in infinite space with all the different karma, because none of these are tangible items. Okay, so we dedicate? Okay, so tomorrow then we'll do the mindfulness of phenomena.